Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast, powered by the African American Marketing Association. Each week, we'll bring you an insightful conversation from some of the best experts in our industry on how to advance our career. Join the collective of Black marketers across the world, advancing their brand as we work towards creating a collaborative community. Hey, good people. Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Gomez, and today's special guest is my good friend, Shimeka Williams, who is the new author of the book, The Confident Switch. Shimeka, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I am doing extremely well.
Yeah, so a little backstory. We met in 2014?
Somewhere around
at
there.
New Media Expo, which is a conference that doesn't exist, but it was for, at least for me, it was for first-time podcasters. That's why I went. And so we've been on this journey together since 2014, and we've been on the journey.
Yes. And I think I attended for the same reason. New podcaster, looking to make connections and find people to have on my show. And I was fortunate enough to meet some great people, including yourself, who was a guest on my show back then. So very exciting opportunity. One, to just have connected with you back then, but to have maintained that connection over all these years is just amazing.
Yeah, definitely. So why don't you tell the people a little bit about yourself, your book, and all the good things that you do?
Oh, wow. So I would probably categorize myself as a serial tripreneur. For years, I tried a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I've continued to get the same results. And what I consider that is, I just say failure. I failed fabulously over and over again. I was someone who wouldn't give up. So I would always try something new and different. But for a long time, I wasn't willing to do anything very different in terms of myself and my development. And it took really failing, especially after I decided to end my podcast. And then going through a few other trials that I said, you know what, Shimeka, I think you are the real problem. And what happened from that is, one, I decided to submit to coaching, mainly to say, okay, I need to figure out what's going on with me. I need some help. And through that experience, I learned and had a pivotal breakthrough. And that allowed me to start pushing the envelope to see exactly what I could accomplish for myself. And so for the longest time for me, my story was I wasn't very happy with my career, and I wanted to escape cubicle captivity, which was the name of the podcast that I had. And I hadn't escaped. I was in the same career for the same industry for 20 years, but had been with the same company for like 16 years. And after I had that breakthrough working with my coach, I decided that I was going to change careers first. That was going to be my first thing. I knew I liked coaching people. I knew I liked helping people. But the thing was, I had never really helped myself. And so for me, the first step was to help myself, and that was to change careers. I made the decision at the top of 2022 that I was going to change careers. Went through that process. By May, I started a new career. And I decided to document that process immediately, because I know that if I moved on to anything else, I was going to forget a lot. Mm-hmm. So I decided to document the process and write a book and explain not only about what I felt it takes to make that change, but also to really do a deep dive on the mindset aspect, because that is what was the biggest challenge for me all of these years.
Thanks for sharing. There's so many directions that we can go. And I got to ask this question, because you said tripreneur. And granted, I don't think I've heard that before, but, it makes sense. And I'm curious because I say entrepreneurship is hard, corporate is hard. You just kind of have to, pick and choose what you want to do. But I got to ask this from the entrepreneur side point. With you calling yourself a tripreneur, Did you ever think you were chasing the money? Like, why do you think you were trying so many different things?
For me, I wasn't chasing the money, but what I wanted was enough income to replace my salary. What I was really chasing was being able to do something that I enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And I realized that I went to college, I got my degree, I graduated and really expected to be able to get a nice corporate job and climb the corporate ladder. And I ended up in what I feel like was a really customer service driven type of role. And I was like, this ain't what I signed up for. And so I was trying to find a way to get into something that I really wanted to do. I'd seen at that point when I really started getting into entrepreneurship very heavy, or tripreneurship, I'd seen Scott Dinsmore's TED Talk, and that was a big impact on me. And so that's why I wanted to really focus on something I enjoyed and not put as much emphasis on the actual income. I just wanted to have enough to replace my job because I wanted to be financially responsible.
Of course. Of course. Okay. I don't even know if there should be a sequence of questions per se. Coaching. And I feel like I'm guilty of this. And I'm curious because we started off on the same journey, right? And I feel like as a marketer, I'm a skeptic when it comes to business and a lot of these online coaching. So do you feel like you were just skeptic when it came to coaching initially and then you just had to cave in? Like, what was that mental shift when it came to coaching? And then there's so many coaches. How did you know which coach you needed as far as industry and not necessarily the person?
I think that there was some skepticism, not because I didn't realize the value that a coach could bring. But I think the other aspect of it was that I often saw coaches who were trying to coach you on maybe your brand or not. Mm-hmm. And not to say that's not important, but I'm not the aesthetics person. And I like to design. I like to pull stuff together, but I like to be, you see, I came colorful today. I like to be colorful. I'm a rebel. So I felt like a lot of the coaching really was about really the business part of things. And while I know that is something that I need help with and would have needed help with, I wasn't necessarily finding or coming across anyone that really struck a chord with me. And I also probably anticipated that it was going to be pricey. And I was like, yeah, no. So that was the other aspect of it. So I had to really bump my head up against the wall a few times. But what was the eye opener for me was I'm a part of a community. And at some point, a coach was introduced to our group to help start facilitating our weekly calls. And he asked a question about the people that you hang with. What are your top priorities in your life? How would you rank them on a scale of 1 to 10? And then the people you spend the most time with. Now, how do they rank as it compares to your top priorities? And basically what you realize is that you may say these things are important to you, but you're around people who don't align with those priorities. And I was like, this guy might be on to something. And so through working with him for a few weeks through that community, I was like, I think he may have the ability to help me.
Okay.
And the ironic aspect of it is his program was really built on helping coaches, but he has a good skill set for working on the mindset. And it was through him giving us additional content and additional support through mindset that I had that epiphany. And then I was like, that's where everything changed for me. And so I realized that while having a business coach is great, what I needed was a mindset coach. I needed the mindset help. And a lot of people may not realize that. And even now, when I think about working with a coach, I'm like, okay, look, all that business stuff is great, but I really need to make sure that my mindset is straight, because that is really the foundation of being able to achieve anything that you want to achieve in life.
That is so true. That is so good. I think with me personally, it's kind of like, I only have so much money. How many coaches am I going to hire? Like, I know I need a coach for everything, but I only got a little bit of coin. So who's it going to be? Okay. But mindset. Yeah, that's, I can definitely see how that's a foundation. And did you mention you had a career coach as well? I think
I did invest in a career coach as I decided to transition careers, mainly because she was offering multiple support in multiple areas.
Okay.
I came very close to paying someone close to $1,000 to revamp my resume and LinkedIn profile. And when I came across my career coach, she was like, okay, well, one, I'm going to help you do that yourself. And then two, you won't have to hire nobody else to do this for you ever again when you learn how to do certain things for yourself. And I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. And ironically, she was the person that introduced my new career to me, because I didn't know a lot about recruiting at the time. I had never felt like I'd never worked with a recruiter, even when, I guess, things have evolved and changed. But of course, I was also in the same career for a long time. And so I didn't know much about it. And once she introduced it and I started doing some research, I was like, I think this is better aligned with what I would prefer to be doing.
And when you realized that, did you immediately identify your skills within insurance into this new role as a recruiter? Like, did you see those transferable skills? Because I think sometimes people struggle. They struggle with that.
I did not see them at all. Oh no, I did not see them at all. And they weren't. And in reality, there's an aspect of them that wasn't there. I mean, I was trying to keyword stuff in my resume. And I was like, yeah, I've recruited people for Toastmasters. I've recruited volunteers to be on our employee resource groups. So I was really trying to sell it. But what happened and where the change took place is when I added my business to my resume.
Oh, really?
Because I had actually hired and recruited virtual assistants for my business. That's
true.
I'd done consulting with a small business owner about her hiring processes, because I'm discertified. So I'm going through the process of talking to her about the type of candidates what to look for in the type of candidates that she's hiring, so that she gets the better quality candidates that are a good fit for the type of business or the type of role that she was hiring for. So I'd done some of that. And so I put those things on my resume. And that is what actually opened the door for me to get the job that I have now.
And your career coach helped you with that?
Well, she helped me understand the recruiting aspect of things and understand, work through certain things, but helped me introduce me to recruiting. But it was me. I was like, I'm going to throw my business up here.
Gotcha.
And I just revised my resume, added that in there. I have a title for myself. And the one thing that I did learn, and I share this as a tip in my book, is that someone said, instead of leveraging your own business, which people may not feel they can really validate, leverage one of your clients' businesses. So if I were to do it over again, it's very possible that I would say, hey, I did this work for this client that I was working with, and leverage their business instead of leveraging the name of my business, where people would have maybe looked at it, with a little bit of suspicion.
Oh, Lord, I'm going through that now. I feel like, and I hate saying this. I hate saying it, especially when it comes to dating, but I got to say this for the job market. But I kind of feel like, these companies might be a little intimidated with me, with the caveat that my resume and LinkedIn profile are two different things. And I had a phone interview recently and they were calling me out. And this was stuff that I had on my LinkedIn. So they were like, so what's up with this? And I was like, I don't want to talk about my business. I need a job. But I like that tidbit. I can definitely do a better job leveraging my client work versus, my work, my business.
Mm-hmm. And even if you did it and had the freelance, if you, however, and you just listed the client specifically that you work with, just something as additional validation, because I feel like for individuals who have worked with a good number of clients like yourself, that's a little different. You trying to put one, unless you have a more tenured client that you choose to highlight, which may be the case. If you have a longer tenured client, then it may make sense to highlight that one client. But if you're doing more short-term assignments with multiple clients, then it may make sense to list your business and then specify, these are the clients that I work with and these are the type of projects that I supported.
That's good. So speaking of resumes, you said you were about to pay someone $1,000. And although you didn't have to spend the money on that, I guess, what are some things that we need to consider if we do need to hire someone to update our resume versus, doing it yourselves?
Well, there are a couple of things. One, I would say that you want to be clear on what job you're applying for. So applying for the role and making sure that your resume says that you're qualified for that particular role is very important. People may hear that it's important to tailor your resume to the job you're applying for, and that's very true. They're looking to see if you have the specific skills or qualifications that they speak to in that job posting. So that's the first thing. Do you have that? And is there a way for you to rephrase your experience to specify that you have that type of experience? The other thing that I would suggest is, you want to use all of the free resources that are available. That includes making sure that you're aware of the power words that you can use on your resume. Make sure you are quantifying what you can quantify and adding metrics. I went back and dug up some performance evaluations and I was like, oh, I forgot that I even did this. And so if you don't have those metrics now and you're not tracking them, start trying to pull something together, start tracking metrics or asking for those metrics so that you can put them on your resume, because that's going to be important, especially when it comes to certain types of roles. And then I would say start utilizing some resources that are available. If you like Resume Genius is a software that I've used for someone recently, and they offer basically suggestions on the type of bullets you can add to your resume for a specific job title. So if you're applying for a specific type of job, and that's what I did. This person wants this type of job. I put that type of job in there, and then I'm going through the bullets and I'm looking for what aligns with what this person's current experience is. So it allows you to restate their experience in a way that more aligns with that particular job description. So I would say flesh out all of the free resources that are available. But the main reason why I was looking to pay someone is because I knew that I was doing a complete industry change. I knew that I had a tenured career in one industry and I did not have the diversity on my resume that really spoke to me easily being able to transition into certain types of positions. And so that was one of the main reasons why I was looking to invest in paying someone to do it for me. But if you aren't making that big of a leap, I would always say try doing it yourself first. But if you're having challenges with just really articulating yourself, and I'm not saying because that's imposter syndrome. I'm saying maybe there is for lack of a better word, deficiency in how you translate words onto paper, then you may want to consider hiring someone in that case.
That's good.
But you don't have to pay $1,000 necessarily either, but do your research, ask for testimonials, because there are a lot of people taking advantage of people right now who want to transition careers, especially women and Black women who are seeking to break into tech. There are a lot of scammers out there. So take full advantage of all of the free resources that are available before you commit to paying someone to do this work for you.
That's good. That's good. I know from my experience, I know I get discouraged where if I don't hear back from a certain number, I'm applying for a whole bunch of jobs at one time. So like, okay, if I haven't heard anything in 3 weeks, I'm like, oh, I need to go back to my resume, right? Or maybe I went through a set of interviews with different companies, but I didn't get an offer. It's like, oh, let me go back to my resume and update it. And then I think for me, although I want to stay in marketing, it's like, okay, I really considered on the investment because I want to get into more of a director or a VP role. And maybe I need a different like layout or words, maybe I am not communicating myself effectively for those type of roles. So definitely worth considering. Or maybe you can just recruit me somewhere.
That would be amazing, of course.
Anywhere. Okay, so yeah, I'm a Black woman. I want to break into tech. What do I need to do?
Oh, wow. Look, it feels like this has been the buzz for probably about the past year.
Yeah.
And I always say what anyone who wants to break into tech, I don't care what industry you want, what career you want, what you want to do, it starts with getting clear on what you want. And I find that there are a lot of individuals who are interested in tech specifically because they've seen someone online talk about how flexible their schedules are and how much money they're making. And like, they don't really have anybody paying attention to, how much work they're doing, and they see the sexy. And it's like, okay, that's cute, but somebody's, they only sell sexy for a reason. Nobody tells you all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And so I say get clear on what it is you want. I don't encourage anyone to chase any particular industry. My philosophy is to do something that you will enjoy, because if you're going to spend 40 hours a week doing it, you don't want to be miserable. I say I'm done trading my time for, being miserable for a paycheck. I'm done with that. That's not what my goal is. And so, but that's me speaking at 45. But I share that with people because oftentimes that's the leading decision, and people end up miserable, and then that impacts your health and well-being. So it starts with figuring out what it is you truly want to do, and then believing that you can have a successful career in whatever that is. And stop believing that it only happens in certain industries. No, you can be successful and have a nice, abundant income in any industry. But once you do that, it's time to start preparing. If you want something big, you have to be able to put in the big effort. Some of these careers, while you may not have to go back to school, you're talking about, learning how to code. You're talking about going through these different courses online and trying to get these certifications. You're learning, and I see a lot of women who are very comfortable learning, but in order for you to make the leap, doing becomes a part of that as well. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be someone who's just has a bunch of certifications and you haven't taken the time to actually apply what you've learned. And so I believe that that's where the passion or the interest in the actual career helps you. Because if you're not going to go out here and be like, yo, who can I freelance with? Who can I help and support? If I'm going to be a web developer, does my church need a new website? Where can I offer these services so that I can get this on my resume? And so those are things that you want to take into consideration when you're looking to make that leap, because the certifications are great, but at the end of the day, experience is more important in a lot of cases. And one of the things that I say is if you had a pilot and he passed all his courses online, but he never flown a plane, do you want him at the head of the plane? So why, if you don't want a pilot that doesn't have experience, why do you think anything should be different for you?
Okay.
It can happen if they're looking for people who don't have it, but don't expect that to be the standard for everyone.
That's a good example. One thing I tell people, and, they don't ever want to do it because it requires work. And I'm like, donate your time and your skills to a nonprofit. Even if you can't be a full-time board member, whatever that commitment is, if you say, hey, I just got XYZ skill, can I work on this project with you or for you? Whatever, I saw this on your website. I noticed this on your social media, whatever the case may be. I would love to make these tweaks. Can you give me a recommendation? Can I put this on my resume? Can you be a reference? Trust me, they will gladly do it.
Exactly.
And maybe it's 1 month, maybe it's 3 months, but yeah, going back to Shimeka's point, you have to get some application of your skill set, of your certification, so do it. Cause you got to do something before someone hires you.
Right? Exactly. Unless they're looking for entry level and they don't require it, that's one thing, but why shoot for the lowest aiming? Just stack the odds in your favor.
That's good. And I get the discouraging thing is these companies are not training like they used to. They might train you on their system, but not like I remember. I feel old now, but I remember back in the day, I worked at Chase. That was the best training I ever had. Like we were in training for 6 weeks before we did anything. Like before you touch a computer or talk to anyone.
Yes. Yes. Now they're different. They got the modules little, and I'm like, I'm not learning anything from the little computer modules, but
yeah. Okay. All right. So I made up my mind. I know I want to be a marketing manager at Google. I got an interview coming up. What are some tips you can give me?
Oh, wow. First of all, review the interview resources that have been provided by your recruiter. We send out those resources for a reason. And I don't work directly for Google, but I work for Randstad, SourceRight, and we're supporting the Google team. And so we send out interview resources, and they are specific to the type of role in which you're applying. So reviewing those resources is extremely important.
Okay.
Being very clear on the different types of interviews that you're going to be going through is also very important. Depending on the type of role you have, the type of interview can be different. So you're going to have, if you were doing something software engineering, there are going to be coding interviews. There are going to be interviews that are going to be focused on more behavioral aspects of things. And then there may be interviews where you're doing some type of whiteboard exercise or presentation, depending on the type of role that you're applying for. So it's important to be fully aware of the different types of interviews that you're going to be going through. With Google, there are going to be multiple. And then preparing for those different interviews individually is going to be very important. I would anticipate that with the marketing manager role, there's going to be, of course, a role that's going to talk about your leadership aspects of things. And you want to make sure that you come, especially to a behavioral interview, with your examples that you can speak to. And one of the things that I tell my candidates or anybody is that you want to make a list of examples that you can use that are going to be a good fit for common behavioral interview questions. These are going to be situations where you're going to talk about a tough challenge, a tight deadline, a difficult person, whatever the case may be. And you want to have specific examples of what that situation was. And what I suggest, and I tell my candidates to do, is you write a list of those examples, have 5 to 7 minimum. And some of those examples can apply to multiple questions possibly. And then you break it down into the STAR method. And STAR is an acronym for situation, task, action, and results. And so break each of those examples down into the STAR method so that you can tell them what the situation was, the task, the action, and the results. And once you have written out each example, you want to refine it. You start practicing how you would recite that particular response. And as a Toastmaster, I used to practice a lot, my speeches and just saying them out loud. And there were times I realized, this word is going to cause me to stumble. So I need to find a different word to use. Mm-hmm. So when you go through and you start tightening up that response, you realize, okay, I can take this word out. I need to use this word instead. I don't need to say all of this. You make sure that you're not speaking so much from the top of your head where you might say any old thing off, out your mouth. You don't want that to happen, but you want to speak with confidence. And so when you have rehearsed that response and that example, you can speak with a different level of confidence versus you're sitting there trying to think of something and you're trying to find the right words and you go through that whole spiel. So that's one of the things that I recommend. And then the same with any other type of interview. Once you know what it is, you want to make sure you're practicing. Coding interviews, you need to practice. If you're going to be doing whiteboarding exercises or any other type of presentations, you want to practice. And then you also want to make sure that you come prepared to speak to any areas of opportunity that you have. One of the things that I learned from my coach was to ask at the end of the interview, is there anything that would make you hesitant to move forward with me as a candidate? And wait for a response. And if they give you a response, this is your opportunity to combat it. So this is your time to overcome that objection. So think about what could possibly be an objection. Is it the lack of experience? Is it, the lack of a formal education? What is it that they could possibly say when you stack up your experience with what they have on the job description? And what can you say to convince them that in spite of what they perceive as a weakness, it's actually something that you've either overcome already, but you didn't have a chance to speak to it, or something that you can overcome.
That's good. And I've never heard of the STAR method before. So that's really good. Thank you. So I try to keep one or two questions in my back pocket. What are some good questions to ask the hiring manager or the recruiter, the person that's interviewing you?
Oh, wow. So there are certain questions that you would ask of the recruiter that may be a little bit more, for lack of general terms, generic, understanding what the interview process is like. They may be able to discuss compensation, benefits, things of that nature. But then the things that you want to leave for the actual hiring manager are going to be more specific to maybe working on the team, what that dynamic is like, maybe asking the hiring manager, when was the last time you had to offer some type of constructive feedback to somebody on your team? And what was that experience like? Or when was the last time someone on your team offered you some constructive feedback? So you want to ask questions that will allow you to get an understanding of who it is you're going to be working with and maybe how they respond to certain situations. So just as they ask you behavioral questions, you want to ask them a behavioral question so that you know who you're dealing with.
That's good. I think we can all do better in that area.
Yes.
Turning the tables around. Okay, so you kind of mentioned it a little bit, compensation. So when is a good time to mention that? Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's important to talk about it during the initial screening phase or conversation, if possible. I know that things can vary from company to company. Things can vary based on your level of experience. And so sometimes it's kind of hard to pinpoint it. I know from my perspective, based on the candidates that we're hiring, it's not easy to pinpoint because it could be this for this, but if you don't perform at that level, it may not be that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you decide to go to this location versus that location, it could be different. So there are a lot of variables there, but I think it's important to get an understanding of at least the range early on. This will tell you, one, whether or not you're interested in moving forward with it.
If the company does not, they put the salary, but not a range. So they're like 80,000. Do you think we should still try to negotiate, or do you just have to respect, what you see on the website? Because after all, you went ahead and applied.
I would always attempt to negotiate, but I would say do that tell them if they're asking you what you are expecting, if you feel comfortable offering what that range is up front, state it. I would say overshoot it if you can. But if you don't want to offer that range and you want to get more information first, you can articulate that as well. But what I have seen here recently is that there are women, mainly women, because I'm in some groups with women that have accepted, who have given a range or given a salary requirement that they're willing to accept. They get the job and they get the job offer. And then they're like, is it too late to renegotiate?
Oh.
It started looking, you need to go ahead and get that figured out on the front end. And this is the other thing. I'm not going to tell anybody to sell themselves short, but this is where you want to do your research on the front end so that you truly know what the going salary is for someone with your skill set and experience in that type of role. You can't go off of what Mary making over here or Sandy making over there when they could have very different experience.
That's true.
You want to make sure you're making this based off of your experience and what you bring to the table so that when you give that figure up front, that's a figure you're good with. And you're not going to be over here thinking and having regrets that you accepted a salary that you now feel like is too low.
Yeah. What else? What else do we need to know? I know we covered a lot. Any other tricks up your sleeve that you can share to the people?
Oh, wow. I think the one thing that's important, LinkedIn, you've been on LinkedIn, you've been advocating for LinkedIn for a long time. And it took me to get to the point where I was looking for a job for me to really get serious about it. But I would definitely say that LinkedIn is extremely important. Getting clear on what it is you want is extremely important. Understand the purpose of your pivot if you're looking to pivot. A lot of people are really going hard for the remote work right now, which I completely understand. But don't make that so important if it really isn't as much of a necessity as it could be. Yeah. There are some people where it really makes a big difference in their life, and it makes a big difference regardless. But have some flexibility if there is an opportunity for you to get the right type of role. Making that a deal breaker can limit your opportunities. I do believe a lot of work can be done remotely. But at the same time, it's like you got to pick your poison. Do you want to get this career and this advancement and this experience? Or do you want to say, I just want to work from home and I'm not going to entertain anything else? You have to have the right type of leverage for that. And so I think that there are a lot of individuals who may be coming into the space of wanting to transition careers, and they got very high expectations. And it's like, we have to be willing to be flexible. Of course, I would have wanted to be paid more than what I'm paying, but I know I didn't come with the same experience as maybe someone else. So I understood for myself what I was walking into and what I was agreeing to, and what I needed and what I didn't need. I personally really wanted to work remotely because I didn't want to have to explain to my next boss why I need to be home certain days out each month. I didn't want to have to explain that and go through that process with anyone. So it was something that was very personal to me because it was something that kept me at the same job for a long time because they already knew my situation. Yeah. So that was something that was very, outside of that, could I go into an office? Yes. But I still wouldn't want to, but I could. So I think that being flexible is going to be important on that job search process. Yeah,
I agree with that. I know I read an article several months ago, And they said pretty much this transition from the pandemic to going back into the office is going to be like boiling a frog. They're just going to turn the heat up slowly, right? So you're probably okay. Oh, hybrid twice a week. Okay, great. But pretty soon it's going to be 3 days, 4 days. So over the next 2 years, I wouldn't be surprised if we're, back to a 5-day work week inside the office.
Yeah, because there's a lot of money riding on that commercial real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the thing people don't realize is like there's a lot of money in that commercial real estate and everything that's tied to it.
Yeah.
All the security, all the people that clean, the electricity, all of the things that come with that. That's a big part of the financial impact. And now when you look at people going more remote, now you got big office buildings and they're like, well, who's going to come rent this out? Who needs it?
Yeah, I watch a lot of news, so that's definitely true. And my heart goes out to them. Yeah.
So I do advocate. I do believe remote working totally can be done. But I think that the other part that people mess themselves up, I'm all for comedy. But a lot of the content that popped up on social media is like you shot yourself in the foot. So when they start peeling back, it's because you're making content, making it look like you're not working. And it's like, it's funny a little bit, it's funny, but let's not do that as much. And so, you have those things and people don't realize that. So I think that, those are the things that are negatively impacting the work at home movement. So
that is a really good point. I never thought of it. Because, even you saying that, I'm thinking of all of the videos I've seen of someone laid out on the bed with the laptop faced the other way. So yeah. And that's someone's real life. And you're on vacation. You're at the beach. You're at the airport.
Exactly. And I want to share this too, because everyone is going to be different, but I do believe that this helps. And this is where you start running into why some people are more for return to office.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my personal philosophy. I'm not saying this because I'm special. It's just how I choose to show up. But this is more something. Well, anyways, I get dressed every day. Now I'm not dressed up nicely, but I'm dressed every day for work. I don't have my hair is out. I don't have a bonnet on or anything covering my hair. I'm dressed and presented, and I'm on camera when I need to be on camera. So I show up for work every day. I'm comfortable, but I show up for work every day. I'm not on my couch. I have an office. I have a dedicated workspace. I don't even, and ironically, I don't have an issue with anybody turning on something and listening. But when I'm at home, it's so quiet. I don't need to turn on a podcast. Mm-hmm. I used to kill podcasts, back in the day. I could binge podcasts like nobody's business. Now I have a hard time keeping up because I don't need to listen to anything because my office space is so quiet. I don't turn the TV on. I don't have, a lot of disruptions just because that's just my life in general. Not having children and anything like that, just, in the, walking around. So I think that if you show up looking like, hey, I'm here and I'm committed to showing up the way that I'm supposed to, there's less question. But when you don't want to turn on your camera, and maybe you're not as readily available, or, that's where it starts to look like, okay, are you fully engaged? Because I'm not dragging myself to work, granted, because I like what I do, but I'm not dragging myself to work as much as like, I'm here, I'm ready, let's rock and roll.
Yeah. Okay, so last point with that, do you feel like the leadership team should definitely be in the office? Because I think that's another caveat I'm seeing as well. I come from an environment even before this where we were not even located all in one area. Mm-hmm. We were distributed, across the country, and it worked effectively for years, even like that. I don't think it's necessary for anyone, but I do believe that there is value in collaboration.
There are certain projects and certain aspects of things that I do believe work well when people are together and are brainstorming and collaborating that you don't necessarily experience trying to do it via a video conference. Do you have great things and great meetings and can be very productive? Yes. But I think their in-person interaction is something that can be beneficial. So I don't think it makes a difference what level you're at when it comes to everybody got their job done during the pandemic. And that was very clear. It's just a matter of showing up engaged. And every once in a while, it's nice to be able to have some type of in-person interaction so that depending on what your role is, to be able to move different projects or ideas forward.
Right. Oh, man, this has been great. This is a lot of insight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank
you. Tell people, how can they find the book?
Awesome. Thank you so much. The book, The Confident Switch, How to Change Careers and Still Love Your Life, is available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. It's also on Apple Books, Google Books, and you can connect with me at The Meka Mindset. That's MEKA, The Meka Mindset on Instagram, TikTok. And then I have my business name, Liberated Living, for my Facebook page. So those are great places to connect with me. One of the things that I chose to do with the book is that in addition to offering the book, I include a workbook, a free workbook. So there's access to a free workbook that helps you work through the pivot process, which is my framework for helping you transition careers, and also offer group mentorship, free group mentorship as a part of the book purchase as well. So for those who purchase the book, you get access to the free group mentorship as well. Wow. Very impressive. Thank you. Is that at the end of the book? Because I'm still reading. It's in the middle, I do believe. Okay. I do believe it's in the middle. So maybe after the pivot process part. Okay. All right. Once again, I'm just so grateful and so proud of you. It's good to just see growth, just personal and professional growth. Yes, it really is. And it's great just to be full circle and just to be able to have this conversation with you. This is amazing. Oh my God. Listeners, y'all are blessed to have this conversation with two good friends. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you for listening to Marketing for the Culture podcast. Thank you for listening to Marketing for the Culture podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe, whether it's on Apple, Google, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And of course, our videos are on YouTube. If you have a moment, feel free to give us a rate, review, or just comment. We appreciate our sponsors for their continuous support. Also, if you're interested in learning more about our sponsors or becoming a member of the African American Marketing Association, visit aa-ma.org.